You're listening to Dare to Think, the official podcast of MereLiberty.com. I'm your host, Carrie Baldwin, and in today's episode, "2020 will mark a watershed moment in history, and one we'd all probably like to forget. The world was thrust into an involuntary paradigm shift. And though this episode will not be about the actual causes of this paradigm shift, it is about a shift I made with my own work on Mere Liberty. Last summer, I launched Mere Liberty Courses, a place at Mere Liberty where people can participate in self-directed courses inspired by the content found at MereLiberty.com. This was motivated by both the need to encourage critical thinking in our culture and also the growing need for affordable online classes for kids and adults. The first course I launched was a course teaching critical thinking through the Socratic method. It's called the Liberty Seminar and is a virtual Socratic seminar where students learn how to think through and dialogue about the principles of a free society. Today I'm talking with some of my adult students from my inaugural class about their experience with using the Socratic method. Join me, Carrie Baldwin, with my Liberty Seminar students as we dare to think about critical thinking. Okay, so today I have with me three of my students from the Adult Liberty Seminar from the summer session, and they are with me today to talk about their experience with the Liberty Seminar, and then later we're going to actually be recording a session which you can hear separately from this episode. So I want to go ahead and jump into this. We have with us Tom, Rachel, and Jean. And first I want to ask you guys, why did you decide to take the Liberty Seminar?
The reason I wanted to take the seminar is because I thought it would help me be a better arguer.
Okay. Tom, why did you decide to take the seminar?
Well, I had read some things by you, and I was really impressed by the way you reasoned things out and wrote and so forth. And I know I have a tendency, even to this day, of letting my emotions get a hold of me, and I'm trying to rein that in as far as the way I think and the way I'm discussing things with other people that have opposing views and so forth, and also to try to become more patient as far as reading books that are deeper and so forth. And, you know, they're the reasons why I signed up.
Okay. And Jean, what about you?
Well, I had talked with you about some things, and so at your suggestion, I decided to take the course. I'm not sure that I really had an objective. It was more curiosity than anything.
Okay. So, so Rachel wanted to take it so that she'd be a better arguer. Tom wanted to take it so that he could, get a better understanding of things, and also, how did you put it? Something about your emotions.
I know that I'm an emotionally charged person at times,
right.
But to be able to calmly discuss things with people, and to be able, which I'm still working on, as you well know, to be able to say things in such a clear manner that, you know, I find it difficult because I think my emotions get a hold of me. So that's
right. Yeah. And we talked a lot about how emotions connect with thoughts. And then Jean just sort of, he was curious, took this on my advice. So each of you had different reasons for doing the seminar. what were your expectations going into this then? Did you know what a Socratic seminar was? Did you, I mean, aside from my writings, did you have any expectations about what this would be like?
No, I was intrigued to find out what Socratic thinking was. So I would say that was my expectation.
Okay. Rachel, you had mentioned that you wanted to be a better arguer. Do you think that the seminar actually met that expectation, or did you learn something else entirely from it?
It did not meet that expectation. It was more about learning to be a better thinker and process through when we read something, just kind of cut through it and ask questions in order to clarify and just dig to the heart of what it's actually saying and trying to reason that out. So it didn't meet that expectation. I'd watched some videos with like Jan Helfeld, which he uses like Socratic questioning. So that's what I really thought the seminar was going to be about, is kind of learning that way of, trying to ask questions of other people to get them to think. I wasn't expecting it would be asking myself questions to get me to think. So, I mean, even though it wasn't what I expected, I still enjoyed it.
Do you think that learning how to ask yourself questions and teaching yourself to be a better thinker actually in the long run makes you a better arguer?
I think so, because if you can ask the questions, then you can kind of anticipate the questions that other people are going to have and be able to communicate those with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've seen Jan Helfeld's videos, and he uses the Socratic method in a similar way to the way Socrates used it, which was, and I don't think he always did this, but he would do this with people that he disagreed with in order to get them to see the error of their logic. And certainly you can use the Socratic method in that way, but the seminar wasn't designed to sort of be for lack of a better
blunt
word,
instrument.
Yes, it wasn't predatory. Okay, so now I want you guys, at the beginning of the seminar, before we even got started, I gave you guys a list of objectives that I wanted you to take a look at, and I asked you to make 5 goals, to pick 5 of them, as a goal. What was one of those objectives that you wanted to work on at the beginning?
Well, one of them for me was to understand how thoughts and feelings relate. For obvious reasons, it's a self-awareness for our emotional reactions and what they indicate. And as I previously stated, I'm a person who lets my emotions sometimes get a hold of me. So it was something that, I needed to work on, and I'm probably going to work on the rest of my life. But this definitely helped.
So do you feel like you've made some progress? You've been able to actually make that connection?
Yes, I definitely made some progress, but then there's times that I find myself just going right at something and I'm thinking, oh geez, now why did I do that? So yes.
Yeah, well, all of these skills are things that you have to continually practice, right? The critical thinking itself is something that you can master, but you have to continually stay in practice in order to keep up with it. What else? Who else has an objective they wanted to share?
Well, I don't remember exactly what the objectives were called, but I do know that I wanted to be able to, have a conversation, argument, debate, whatnot with a person, where I would be willing to to think about what they are saying without having to prove them wrong or whatever. I wanted to be able to become a better listener, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, so just as a reminder, I'm not going to be able to read all of these, but I'll read a few. There's developing intellectual humility, which is recognizing our own limits of knowledge and when to say I don't know. Developing self-awareness, distinguishing between our reality and ours or others' impressions of reality. Developing intellectual courage, which is challenging paradigms and being willing to stand on unpopular positions when necessary. Exercising fair-mindedness, as Tom said, understanding how thoughts and feelings relate. Developing your own worldview, developing confidence in reasoning, clarifying issues, conclusions, and beliefs. So those were some of the objectives. And those are listed on my course's website. So which objective do you guys think you developed in that you didn't anticipate developing in? Rachel, you had mentioned that you wanted to learn how to argue, but you came across something entirely different. So what do you think you developed in that you didn't anticipate developing in?
Probably just better reasoning better myself. I thought I reasoned pretty well, but the kind of the steps and the questions, that I had not really considered before, that gave me kind of new tools to put into the toolbox to, when I read something, to think about it a little more deeply instead of saying, oh yeah, that confirms my existing biases. So I believe that. So especially in this, the past several months, I've been able to kind of use that and try to read a little deeper than surface level on what I'm reading. And so I'll read stuff that maybe I know that I'm not going to agree with, and then try to employ some of these strategies.
I don't necessarily know if I developed it, but I think I'm in the process of developing it, and that's develop intellectual humility. So many times in the past, I would realize that, I've read certain things, and just because someone doesn't know a fact that I know, I'm automatically thinking, well, they don't know what they're talking about and so forth. But that doesn't mean they don't know what they're talking about just because they don't know the whole story. I may not know the whole story. So I got to realize that, we both might not know the whole story or the issue, and you got to accept that. So you get to the point where you realize that, well, maybe I don't know all that I think I know. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's really valuable, especially today when you're on social media and, everybody's their own expert. And it's very easy to fall into this idea that, you know everything that you need to know, and you formed an opinion, and that's it. And so there's very little, or there tends to be very little listening on either side. And that objective of intellectual humility acknowledges that, not any one person, particularly, myself, has enough knowledge to be able to say, I'm an expert on this. I know the answer to this.
And I find it interesting that that Rachel, she's trying to learn how to argue, and I'm trying to learn how to stop. So I start to say something now, and I'll stop because somebody else is starting to say something, and I would rather hear what they have to say than to hear what I have to say, so.
Yeah. So the book that we went through, and we did a few videos I interjected throughout the course, but the book that we were going through was Murray Rothbard's For New Liberty. What were your impressions of the book, just overall, generally?
Well, I've always wanted to read it, and I can't say I read the entire thing, but I'm in the process now of almost halfway through the entire thing. And it's quite fascinating with what Rothbard has to say. And I guess it was initially written back in, I forget the date off the top of my head, but it really has made me think about how we have been conditioned, or I have been conditioned for so many years of my life to think that, the only way we could live civilized is with government or the state or whatever you want to call the entity.
Mm-hmm. Jean, what did you want to say?
I don't remember. I enjoyed what you said, though, Tom. I agree with what you're saying totally, and that's what I learned in the book. I think it's well written. I think it's well thought out. I think he makes really good points, and I think that my eyes have really been opened because, as Tom stated, the way things are the only thing that I was aware that could exist or could work. And in fact, I mean, we live in a country where the dream has already arrived and we are living it, that kind of a thing almost. So especially when I was younger, that's the way it was. So, I mean, to be so completely enlightened with a new system, not a new one, but new to me, that certainly has the properties to it of being so much more successful than what we live under now, was something that I've really enjoyed having the privilege of getting to know about.
Rachel, what about you? What did you think of the book?
I enjoyed it. I think he's an excellent writer, very engaging, and you can tell he's kind of excited about what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So that his passion for what he thinks really comes through in the book, and then that kind of makes me excited and passionate about it as well. And so I think it will help me be a better arguer, but not like argument for argument's sake, but just,
right.
Being able to communicate the ideas of liberty and how we can do things differently other than the status quo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just as a reminder, the book was originally published in 1973, but it was updated, and I didn't catch the updated publication. But as we went through the book, we did notice that there seemed to be, some data points that were outdated. And so that actually gave us an opportunity to disagree with Rothbard on places, or to reevaluate some of the things that he was saying. So, after having gone through this, and one of the things that I've tried to really emphasize with all of my students is that, there's value in the freedom to disagree on ideas. So what do you think, especially in light of what's going on right now, why do you think it's so important that we be free to disagree on ideas?
Well, I think it's a very good thing to be free to disagree or to entertain an idea that you don't agree with, just so that you can actually include all the information that you would in your thinking process in order, and not just as one person, but as a group, to maybe come up with something that would actually be substantially better or be the right idea or whatever the case may be,
Mm-hmm.
So, because our ideas can be changed, that's for sure. If we're shown something that we don't know about or we don't have information about, that's for sure.
Just to add on to what Gene just said, I mean, look at the times that we're living in, where especially since the pandemic and so forth, where people are forced to wear masks, the uniformity that's existing when you go outside, or we were in lockdowns and so forth. And even more importantly, the restriction of free speech, and really having a total and full discussion of all types of issues without being called a name, whether it's this name or that name, no matter if you're on the right or the left. I mean, it's very important. I think if a lot of people read this book and truly took it to heart, it might really have a profound effect on many people in this country.
Yeah, and Rachel, especially, I'm picking on you because you had this expectation of being able to argue better. How has the seminar changed that perspective, just as far as being able to peg someone down, like Jan Helfeld is very much motivated to peg people down and show them that they've screwed up in their thinking. But how valuable is it for people to just be able to have a dialogue where they're working through their disagreements rather than, pegging somebody down and being the victor in a given situation.
Well, I think I've probably been able to do that a little better. Not, and I'm usually better when it's not someone who's related to me. If it's someone who's not my family, I'm much more patient and willing to let them work through the process. If they're related to me, I have zero patience for them. So I feel like, because there's not everybody that is on my page believes what I believe.
Sure.
Obviously, we're in the minority here. So I feel like maybe we've had better discussions, or, maybe I'm just delusional. But I've also actually, I think, argued a little less when I'm like scrolling through Facebook. And sometimes I felt like I had a moral duty to correct them. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I'll just hide them so I don't see them anymore, because nothing I'm going to say is going to change their mind anyway.
So one of the, two of the lessons, we had a 2-part lesson that we did in the very, very beginning on manipulation. And I put that lesson in there on purpose because I wanted to distinguish between, not only did I want to teach you guys about manipulation, what it is and how to handle it, but I wanted to distinguish between manipulation and critical thinking. So in hindsight, and I know this wasn't a planned question, but in hindsight, I want you guys to think about, how manipulation is so different from critical thinking.
Well, in manipulation, the manipulator is only concerned with their own cause, their own, it's very self-oriented. Whereas critical thinking is more like of a thinking where you're taking on the concerns of others as well as yourself. It's not totally selfish.
Oh, that's interesting. What do you guys think about that?
Well, with manipulation, if I remember correctly, it's like Gene said, it's a one-way street. And when you have critical thinking and you're discussing things with other people and so forth, it's open communication. So you should be able to have a free flow of ideas and to accept and listen to what other people are saying. And you may not agree with them, but at least as long as they're being, for lack of a better word, civil in their discussion and so forth, you may get to a point where you may just say, well, we're going to have to agree to disagree or whatever, instead of just labeling someone as with a label.
And I also think that if you're trying to reason with a person, it may be true that you're trying to get them to see things your way, but you're also trying to see things their way, just in case you might have missed something. But I also know that, like, if you're trying to manipulate somebody, if I try to manipulate Thomas into seeing things my way, I don't think he's going to have a true sense of seeing things my way, unless, of course, he IDs me as a manipulator. But also, if I use force, like if I'm going to try and, I remember the name of that person and try and pound it down, this is the facts, and all I do is cause resentment in the other person, then I have accomplished nothing by reasoning and using critical thinking and as an example, whatever Thomas's position would be that I disagreed with, if I knew his position better than he does, then I will be able to reason with him a lot better than if I just only know my own points and am just trying to pound them into him. That just doesn't work.
So, Gene, are you saying that by listening to other people, we can actually improve on our own ideas?
Oh, definitely. I think we all can, because I think if we become a think tank and we're not competing with each other, but we all have a goal rather than, and our goal is in this case would be libertarianism. I think it's going to become a much better thing if we're all together in this, even if we disagree, as opposed to trying to coerce each other through different types of means into seeing our way only or something.
And
Exactly.
it also made me a little more aware as a home educator about, educating my son instead of just presenting him this one side, this narrow view that I want him to learn, kind of try to give him a full, both what I think is true history and maybe some of the official narrative so that I'm not force feeding him stuff. And I've tried to keep that in mind in conversations with like my husband instead of browbeating him over things, because he's kind of an apolitical guy. So instead of just browbeating him into believing what I think he should believe, tried to be a little more aware of, hey, he's got opinions too.
So what I hear from all three of you is that, going through this process and developing some of these skills and learning how to critically think have really helped you to sort of slow down, be considerate of others, develop your own ideas, consider where you're wrong potentially. And even Rachel, I really liked your point about how it's changed the way you were, home educating your son. So that seems like, some really positive outcomes. And I like that you mentioned education, Rachel, because that's going to segue very nicely into our recorded session that we're going to get underway in just a moment. But my final question to you is, would you recommend this Liberty Seminar to other people?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Without a doubt. In fact, I would take it over again if I could.
Oh, very good.
I have to say that I guess there's always a time, you always come across certain times in your life where you come across certain people that cross your paths. And I have to say that since I start reading you, Curry, and just taking this course, it's, for lack of a better word, it's been a blessing that I've had this opportunity, and even meeting with and having the opportunity to meet Rachel and Jean. It's been an enjoyable 16 weeks, 15 weeks. I've really have enjoyed it.
Yeah, I second that.
Third.
Well, I appreciate those kind words. And I have to say that my seminars have all been very, very enjoyable. I've really been excited to see you guys develop these skills, and also just to be able to have the conversations with you guys and to think through what Rothbard is saying and some of the other things that we also talked about. So I want you guys to hang on. We're going to take a little bit of a break, but for those who are listening, if you are interested in hearing what one of these Socratic sessions is like, you can do that by listening to this next episode, which will be recorded. It'll be posted both on my courses website, which is courses.mirrorliberty.com, and it will be also the next episode following this in the podcast. So with that, thank you guys for being here for the interview. I really appreciate it. We're going to pause and take a break, and then come back for one last session together. If you'd like more information about the Liberty Seminar and how to sign up, visit courses.mirrorliberty.com. You can also join my new Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/mirrorliberty. You'll find a link in the show notes. In this group, you can get more info on my courses offered, exclusive discounts, updates on new course offerings, and much more. You've been listening to Dare to Think, the official podcast of mirrorliberty.com. I'm Carrie Baldwin, and I'm an independent researcher and writer working outside academia. My mission is to challenge and rethink our paradigms for understanding society by applying Reformed theology and philosophy to politics, religion, and culture, in order to encourage individual freedom and responsibility within our own spheres of influence. This episode was created due to the generous support of my patrons and underwriters. I'm so very grateful to Bob, Patrick and Shannon, Dave and Nina, Jean, John, and my newest patron, Tom, for helping me get this episode published. If you've enjoyed today's episode and would like to join me and my other patrons and underwriters in our effort, you can sign up at mereliberty.com/membership. Joining on a monthly membership comes with exclusive rewards and premium content. Alternatively, you can choose a one-time donation. You'll find a direct link to the membership page in the description to this episode. You can listen to more episodes by subscribing on virtually any podcatcher, and you can read my articles on mereliberty.com and the Libertarian Christian Institute, where I'm a regular contributor. Thanks for listening.